Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on a Tuesday night. Hope everybody is having a great evening so far. Lot of things to go through. The Titans offseason officially underway. Silly season is upon us. We are talking about all manner of ridiculous things already so far. I think the situation for the Tennessee Titans is this at this point. For Tennessee, they have a number of different things that they need to go through. And they, at this point, need to make sure they address the various problems with this team. Now, there's a variety of different things that the Titans have tried to rectify over the past couple of months that they've been largely unsuccessful at. And at this point, they need to make sure that they can get these things fixed. So, in what order do they need to go about fixing them? We're going to go through the offseason checklist tonight on A to Z Sports Primetime. Before we start that, though, need you guys to share this show on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. If you're hanging out on Twitter, please retweet the show in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you are on YouTube or on Twitch, please subscribe to the channel and make sure that you throw a like on the video if you would be so kind. Facebook Live, like Michael Webb or Jeff Roberts, you can share now to public in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, and we will discuss at length and enjoy the conversation with you and whomever you choose to invite into the conversation. That being said, let's go ahead and get this thing started. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time from the Superbook Sports Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising, and I am proud, as always, to be presented to you by True Mav Fitness in the Gulch. True Mav Fitness is where you go for the best way to get your New Year's resolution underway. Get your first workout free as a Middle Tennessee resident at TrueMavFitness.com. The Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage, GaryAshton.com, is where you go for your dream address without the stress. Two Rivers Ford, where you can get 2023 model year Fords available right now in stock at the dealership. Go test drive one for yourself today. And Superbook Sports, where you wager on every major sport, where they'll match your first bet up to $1,000, win or lose. Download the Superbook Sports app. Go to superbook.com for terms and conditions, and you will enjoy yourself there as well. So, off-season checklist-wise, there's a variety of different things to go through. And I think that as we talk about the idea of offensive coordinator before general manager, vice versa, what needs to be corrected first on the roster? What is the priorities there? What are the priorities there? I think that there's a variety of different situations that you have to go through and look at and say, okay, what makes the most sense first and foremost, and what stands to benefit this team in the greatest way. So as far as these things go, I think that you have to look at it in a multi-layered situation. So let's take this piece by piece, because as far as the importance of things on the football team and as far as the importance of getting things corrected, there's two things that jump to the top of the list right away. The general manager situation, and in no particular order, or you can put them in a particular order if you like to, but offensive coordinator and GM. Those are the two things that are the most outstanding. Those are the two things that are going to be first up in terms of the hiring and firing cycle, right? We've already gone through the NFL's Black Monday. Now teams will start exploring, start requesting interviews, start doing all manner of different things to get ready to put their staffs together, both in the front office and from a coaching standpoint. So let's talk about the importance of those two things first before we talk about philosophical issues that may need to be addressed. On the comments on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, it's your Two Rivers Ford take. Which would you prioritize first? The new Titans offensive coordinator or finding the next team GM? What is the most important role for the Titans to fill? Give me your answer and we'll talk about it together right after I remind you that Two Rivers Ford is where you go for 2023 model year Fords in stock and available for you to drive right now. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet. Go check out the Explorers, the Escapes, the F-150s, the Broncos, the Mustang Mach-E, and so many other great 2023 model year Fords. Two Rivers Ford always goes above and beyond with their award-winning customer service, and they always sell all new non-specialty Ford vehicles below MSRP. Two Rivers Ford is the best place. 40 years in the industry because of the brand and the equity that they have built, because they do business the right way. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet, or online at tworiversford.com. So, looking at the situation for the Titans, John Robinson's been fired for over a month now, right? And the offensive coordinator situation just came to a head yesterday. The official release, or lack of retention, statement from Mike Vrabel about Todd Downing, the offensive coordinator, and 3 other staffers. So when you look at the 2 things that we need, that the team may need to prioritize, what is more important to you? I think that there's a variety of different ways that you can look at this, right? I think that as you talk about the Titans and you talk about the need for change, there is a lot of moving pieces and parts. But I would almost think it's a chicken and the egg type conversation. Which came first? Do you need the coaches first, or do you need the general manager first? Because it depends on the situation, right? The Titans have been in a situation where a head coach was hired, given a job, and then a general manager was hired after the fact. In the case of Mike Mularkey, now that was different, right? He was an interim. He then became the full-time head coach. Then Amy Adams-Strunk hired John Robinson to come in and be the general manager in that first season, right? 2016. And so that is a good example of a general manager coming in after a head coach has already been hired, not necessarily as a cohesive unit. Now, that's a little bit of a different situation, right? Now, we saw what happened with Mike Mularkey and John Robinson at the end. There was obviously a need to kind of separate to a certain extent and to move on from that situation that did come about. And I think that as you talk about the different things for the Tennessee Titans at the stage that they're in, it's important to look at a variety of different things. There's also what Roy L. Wright brings up. Do you think Mike Vrabel might take the job of GM also? Now, anything is possible, I suppose. There's precedent for it with Bill O'Brien in Houston and other coaches in various sports. Doc Rivers with the Clippers comes to mind. He was both the head coach and the general manager at times, or at least in charge of personnel. I think that it's far less likely at this point that Mike would do both jobs. They're obviously interested in hiring a general manager. It's just not something that you see typically done. Now, just because it would be atypical doesn't mean that you can rule out just about any scenario in these situations. Only Amy Adams-Strunk can answer that question truly. But I think that for all the different things that need to be delegated, I think even Mike Vrabel would look at that situation and be like, that's a lot more. That's a lot more than he might be willing to do. Now, he definitely wants say, and he definitely wants an emphasis on what Amy Adams-Strunk kept mentioning in the recent article on TennesseeTitans.com that Jimmy Wyatt wrote. Collaboration, right? They need collaboration, better collaboration between the front office, the coaching staff, and everybody else at this point. So as you talk about these things, your Two Rivers Ford take, what is more important? I think the idea that a general manager should not be hired first, that at least to me, seems counterintuitive about the process.
What has Amy told you about how the kind of search now that we're out of the season, how the search will play out for the GM and what your role will be?
Well, comfortable, with those conversations about, being involved. I think that they're excited about the group that they're going to bring in and meet with. And I think that, once they kind of get through that first process, be involved in, whatever would come after that, and probably a smaller group, excited about that process and being involved and, helping in any way that I can.
She asked for your input on anyone that you may already know that you would have a preference for?
Yeah, we've had conversations about it, so I would just say that those were good conversations, open conversations. So yeah, that's, it's not like Amy's kept me in the dark about the process and how that's going.
Overwhelmingly involved, right? That's Mike Vrabel speaking to the media on Monday. A reminder that A to Z Sports Prime Time is presented by TrueMav Fitness. Your workout goals, your New Year's goals, accomplishable at TrueMav Fitness in the Gulch. They provide you great group classes, boot camp style, no workout ever recycled or repeated. You're going to push yourself physically without overexerting, without making yourself uncomfortable. You are going to be in the best possible hands with their training staff. In fact, one of their personal trainers just won the Nashville Scene Award for Personal Trainer of the Year. So congratulations to all the great staff at TrueMav Fitness in the Gulch. They have helped me incredibly, and I am grateful for the progress that we have made. They can help you do the same at TrueMav Fitness in the Gulch. TrueMavFitness.com is where you go to sign up for any level of membership that fits your budget and your needs, and your first workout free as a Middle Tennessee resident. Go sign up at TrueMavFitness.com today. So Mike Vrabel talking there about the general manager situation, and I think that on a variety of different fronts, you got to take what Mike says in those things with a grain of salt. For example, it was implied that they would take not the better part of a week, but more further into the week than Monday afternoon at 4:00 to continue to evaluate the coaching staff. At 11:30, there have been no coaching staff decisions made, and then all of a sudden, 4 pretty critical staffers are fired in ways that Mike Vrabel had said, no staff changes yet. Haven't met with the coaches yet. All that's coming throughout the course of the week. And then 4 p.m. came, and that was not the case. So you gotta try and parse these things, right? And so Mike is involved to a degree. Now, Amy has pointed out the idea that there's an extensive search going on. They've been doing it for about a month. There's a variety of different candidates that have been listed that they have already interviewed, including 2 internal, 2 with the 49ers, 1 staffer from each of the Browns, Bears, Bills, and Cardinals. The names: Ryan Cowden, Monty Ossenfort, both with the Titans, Rand Carthen and Adam Peters, executives with San Francisco, Glenn Cook in Cleveland, Chicago's Ian Cunningham, Malik Boyd of the Bills, and Quentin Harris with the Arizona Cardinals. So all 8 of those reportedly requested candidates have played college or professional football in some form or fashion. All 8 have played at the collegiate level. 4 of the 8 have been NFL players. So there's clearly a value on game and on NFL experience, legitimate playing NFL experience that those guys bring to the table collectively. Now, there's a variety of different levels to kind of look at that. But I think that the thing that should be first and foremost prioritized, and likely will be, is the general manager situation. Because once you have the general manager in place, then you can get with the coaching staff on your philosophy. The general manager can organize his staff and mobilize things as we get ready for the Senior Bowl in about a month from now. Less than a month from now, as a matter of fact, is the Senior Bowl, and something that is rapidly approaching for the NFL draft world. So to be able to be prepared for the combine and then to draft the kind of players that the coaching staff is looking for, you have to first have that person in place. That person is also going to have to make critical decisions on, at least 12 integral players on this roster, Jeff Simmons included, a big contract situation, and a handful of free agents, who are going to be legitimate questions as to what their future with the team is at this time. So start with the general manager, then the OC. I think that's what makes the most sense to everybody at this point. So let's talk about the idea of philosophical changes. Do you agree or disagree? The Titans' philosophy on offense needs to change. Now, we can parse through what that means. Here in just a second, you're going to hear from Josh Dobbs momentarily. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Agree or disagree? The Titans' philosophy needs to change on offense specifically. We'll talk about it together right after I remind you that A to Z Sports Prime Time is presented by the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. GaryAshton.com is where you go for your dream address without the stress. The Ashton team will put you in a position to succeed. They are the best in the business. There is no disputing that. Intel Edge you need helps you sell your home without any showings or staging, helps you find your next one while you sell your current one in this red-hot Nashville real estate market, helps you win the buyer battle and cash in on your home equity right now. Gary Ashton and the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage, the Intel Edge you need to succeed. can be found with the Ashton team. So, philosophically, what would you change about the Titans offense? Does it need to change at this point? Michael says yes. William Young says yes, make it more balanced. A. Jensen says, duh, he does agree. I think there's an argument going on about Malik Willis. There'd be plenty of time to talk about Malik later on I don't think he's terribly important at this time. I think that, but there, as you explore the possibility of what Malik can be in your offense, you have to make these kind of critical evaluations. David Allen says disagree, which is the first, I think, dissenting, or rather the first disagree on the need for the Titans to change their philosophy. Was just fine in late 19 and 20. They had legit talent on offensive line, offensive coordinator, tight end, and wide receivers, and were fantastic. This is all accurate. Now, it took them about half a season to turn in to something fantastic, to turn into something really, really good. And they had, a future NFL head coach as their offensive coordinator who I think took some time to figure out what he wanted to be or what they wanted to be with him calling the plays. And then once he found a groove, he was cooking. In Arthur Smith. So I'm largely with David. I don't think philosophically they need to change. I think you can still play the style of football that Mike Vrabel has shown consistently, at least with Derrick Henry on the roster, that he wants to play. But I do think you can find somebody who can do it better. I think you can find somebody, you can certainly find better players at this stage, which I think is the primary. I mean, obviously there are personnel or there are staff issues to work out, both front office and coaching, but I think that you can put together a better roster, a more competitive roster, and run a better version of your offense. And I think the tendencies on that can evolve. Like you can still say, all right, run the damn ball is the Tennessee Titans offense, but maybe, pass a little more on first down. It doesn't need to be wholesale change. They're still built to play a certain style. They'll still have a couple of these core pieces on the roster. And I think they can do it well, provided that they upgrade in a variety of different places that, particularly the offensive line. They've been chasing offensive line rebuild for several years at this point. And obviously that's one of the biggest things that has hindered them. But I think that the situation I just saw a comment from Josh that made me laugh. Checklist looking like the injured reserve list. Where do you start? A whole CVS receipt. That's exactly right. But yeah, there's a variety of different ways that they need to go through this thing. I think that for the purposes of the offense and philosophically, there's a couple of different interesting candidates. Tim Kelly is somebody who's in-house. He should be viewed as the favorite at this point. Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated, who's very well connected, of course, in the league and knows Mike Vrabel well from their time together in New England as player and media member. Bill O'Brien has been mentioned, and Cliff Kingsbury, who, of course, is a former teammate of Mike Vrabel, would be a very interesting discussion, something that I'd like to talk about later in the week. But I think for now, philosophically, I don't think they need to change. I don't think they need to completely change who it is that they are or what it is that they want to do. I think Mike Vrabel still largely wants to play to a certain style. Now, he did bring up the idea of more team speed, and that can help them. They don't necessarily have that. They haven't had that under Mike Vrabel, and so I don't necessarily think that is indicative of a wholesale change. But they definitely can find definitely can find better players, and an offensive coordinator who seems more equipped for situations than Todd Downing did at this point. Kelly hasn't shown much if he was supposed to be helping Downing. This is a fair point. Like you can't give Todd Downing or you can't give Tim Kelly a pass for the same offensive coaching staff that, just got Todd Downing fired. I do think that he should have the opportunity. I mean, he's been an offensive coordinator in the league before. He's been a successful offensive coordinator in the league before. So, how much say does he actually have? He's not calling the plays. I think that there's a variety of different. You can still have a degree of that, but I don't think he should be held. He shouldn't be held accountable for all of the sins of the things that cost Todd Downing his job. Chris Bine says, Buck, can we meet up one day so I can cook you breakfast and talk Titans? No weirdo vibes. Probably not, but I appreciate the offer at this point. I'm not a big breakfast guy. I like black coffee and a power bar. No, no, not necessarily a sit down for breakfast type of person. But if you have good coffee, we can, we can start there. You may have to buy me a drink first. It sounds like, based on the lack of weirdo vibes. But I think at this point, philosophically, I think the Tennessee Titans can continue to play their style of football, and I think that those adjustments that we're talking about, by percentage, the amount of runs on first down is something that was discussed throughout the course of Mike Vrabel's tenure, or rather, of Todd Downing's tenure. They put the 24 times did they run the ball on first down against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They threw on first downs 4 times. Now, those first down runs, a lot of times it's just kind of like throwing first down away, because whether it's a lack of execution, whether it's, the defense being constantly ready for it, Derrick Henry and his first down efficiency is not been as successful as they need it to be. So can they, even first down play action, the way that we didn't see them do until late in that game, it's kind of perplexing that it continues to be the case that way. Joey Parker says it's mind-blowing how these people still think that this ancient offensive style actually works. Look at playoff teams. Well, but I mean, Joey, you got to do that by degrees, right? Like, there are plenty of, so let's look at a playoff team. Do you know how many of the playoff teams? Let me pull off I'll pull up the NFL playoff picture, and we'll go through this, because I do think I can name at least 3 off the top of my head that would fit, I guess, what Joey is assigning to them as an archaic style of football, even if it ignores the specific situation. So in the AFC, we'll go 1 through 7. Chiefs, Bills, Bengals, Jags, Chargers, Ravens, Dolphins. So of those 7 teams, I would say that the Ravens and the Dolphins are 2 teams that have predicated their attack off the ability to run the football. Baltimore is different. Not everybody has Lamar Jackson, and Lamar obviously hasn't played in quite some time. But Miami, Mike McDaniel, who comes from Kyle Shanahan, the 2nd seed in the NFC, that is a run-based offense that creates play-action passing windows off of their outside zone scheme. That's a run-first offense in the NFL. Now, they do it more creatively, right? And it's been a struggle for them. They've lost a handful of games down the stretch, won the last one to be able to get in. But Baltimore and Miami are both run-based offenses. You look at the NFC, primarily, and I know Jalen Hurts has taken big steps as a passer this year, but primarily Philadelphia's attack is based on the ability to run the football, as is San Francisco, as is Minnesota. Dallas has a little more balance to them, but they do have a stable of running backs that they lean on heavily. Seattle runs the football as a primary means of setting up what it is that they do their offense. So far more offenses in the NFL playoffs are predicated on the ability to run the football. Now, there's a couple of differences in that, right? San Francisco obviously has one of the best offensive lines in football. It gives them a lot of ability to be able to do that. The Chiefs find ways to run the football. Dom Odell says the 49ers got weapons out the ass buck, but you're missing the point. The previous commenter, I believe it was Joey brought up archaic style of football. And there are some statistical tendencies that they can correct and still play a style of NFL football that plenty of other teams in the NFL are utilizing right now, even if it doesn't look as predictable as the Titans. I think that's the kind of thing that you take away from this at this stage. Just think of the offenses with Arthur Smith, right? The offensive philosophy is not different from LaFleur to Smith to Downing. It's just a matter of play caller, specific tendencies, and what personnel do each of the 3 of those have available at the time. I think Matt LaFleur would have had a lot more success with the Tennessee Titans on offense if Marcus Mariota hadn't, and they had the nerve damage situation, the ulnar nerve injury in Marcus's elbow that year. Like, there's plenty of problems. I think that the situation, you have to take it piece by piece And that's the biggest takeaway that I have from their offensive philosophy or anything that might change. MB says, Buck, it's not the same thing. Those teams don't have games that they threw for under 10 attempts. Oh, well, I mean, under 10 attempts? Did Malik have a game under 10 attempts? I know he had 10 attempts at that point, but I don't think that's and also like the Malik thing, that you're right. It's not the same thing. That's not an NFL quarterback. But I believe Malik had 10 total attempts in the Texans game. Less completions for sure. But I think that the circumstances like I almost wish we could remove the Malik Willis sample size at this point, because I just think that's an anomaly in the middle of all of this. Either way, we'll have plenty of time to talk about that. We'll keep you updated with any information that's available to us on the offensive coordinator and general manager search. In the meantime, let's do a gone viral video. Who was more disrespectful to their opponents this weekend? Georgia, the Bulldogs, the defending national champion, two-time defending national champions, or the Kansas City Chiefs? Let me know who you think was more disrespectful, Georgia or Kansas City, against their opponents this past weekend. We'll talk about it together right after I tell you about the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. Excuse me, I've already told you about the Ashton team. It's time to tell you about Superbook Sports. Superbook Sports gets you in on all the action. They'll match your first bet up to $1,000, win or lose. Download the Superbook app today. Get great odds boost and promotions on your favorite major sports. Superbook Sports is always the best when it comes to the clean, easy-to-use app that they have. So download it today. Go to superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. MB says, can you explain the question better? The question, I think it's difficult for me to explain any better in terms of who was more disrespectful to their opponents this weekend. So if you didn't see the NFL playoffs, the game before the Titans and the Jags was the Chiefs and the Raiders. Now, the Chiefs and the Raiders the Raiders got their asses handed to them, and the Chiefs were doing things that I think in most circumstances would have been deemed completely ridiculous, except the completely ridiculous things that they were doing on the field had a touchdown pass that was wiped off in the middle of it. So I think this is as disrespectful a play formation as I have seen. I like to call it ring around the rosy, Kansas City style.
Coming back. Look at this.
I've never seen that before in my life. A little carousel, kick it to Patrick, back throw, or throwback screen.
Now, there was a hold that negated that, but it's some of the most disrespectful shit I've ever seen. They're just screwing around. They're playing with their food out there. And speaking with literally playing with their food, was that more disrespectful than what Georgia did on the sidelines as they were kicking TCU's ass 65-7 last night in a quote-unquote national championship game? They're literally eating wings on the sideline as they beat the holy hell out of TCU. It is so disrespectful. I think Georgia by a mile is disrespectful, because not only did they beat TCU in the national championship game by a greater margin of victory than any other game in the history of bowl games, 65-7. Are you kidding me? Chicken wings during a game is wild, says Dom Odell. It's mercenary shit. They killed them on and off the field. Tough scene. I think you got to go. I think you got to go Georgia in that spot. Anyway, it's going to do it for us tonight on the Primetime Show. Radio show tomorrow, 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone. Mike Giardi, the NFL Network. We're going to talk about the NFL head coach, we'll probably talk a little bit about head coaching candidates, but offensive coordinator candidates and GM movement around the league with our pal Mike. We'll also have the dumbest thing in sports at 11 o'clock, which will always be a good time. So join us on the radio show, 10 a.m., as I said, Central Time on 104.5 The Zone. And if I don't catch you there, I will see you tomorrow night on A to Z Sports Prime Time. See you guys.